The anticipation had turned into a storm. For weeks, clips and comments circled across TikTok and X, rumors, reactions, and one question: would Karoline Leavitt survive Stephen Colbert's hot seat? At 27, she was the youngest press secretary in U.S. history, a Gen Z conservative with a viral tongue and a fearless loyalty to Donald Trump. Not a spokesperson, a symbol. To some, a truth teller. To others, a polished mouthpiece for a controversial regime. Trump's second term had already ignited chaos, banning press outlets, clashing with Canada, and sitting down with Russia. Every headline seemed to lead back to one face: Karoline. Colbert wasn't just hosting a segment, he was stepping into the ring. He'd vowed to unmask her, to peel away the confidence, the followers, the fire. But she came to fight, in sneakers, with stats, sarcasm, and steel behind her smile. This wasn't an interview. This was a broadcast war, and Karoline didn't come to play, she came to win. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. She didn't walk in. She arrived, like a headline in motion. The double doors of the Late Show studio creaked open with showbiz polish, but the tension in the room didn't care for polish. It snapped like static in the air. Every camera swiveled toward the entrance. The studio lights didn't just beam, they hunted, highlighting a single silhouette stepping onto the stage: Karoline Leavitt, black oversized jacket, white platform sneakers, hair tied back with a silk band, not for elegance but to say, "I'm here for a fight, not a photo shoot." Every step echoed louder than the last. Click, 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 until they no longer sounded like footsteps. They sounded like punctuation marks. Her face? Calm. Her eyes? Loaded. She didn't scan the room. She already knew how divided it was. Half the crowd erupted with claps, standing up like they were greeting a rock star. The other half? Boos, eye rolls, and sharp whispers. "Trump's mouthpiece," someone hissed. But Karoline didn't flinch. Her lips curved into a smile. Not soft, not fake, but sharp. The kind that says, "Say my name louder. I feed off it." The spotlight caught the edge of her jaw as she turned to the audience. The camera zoomed in, live cut front and center, millions watching, X trending, YouTube channels already prepping reaction videos, and sitting at the iconic desk, Stephen Colbert leaned forward slightly. His hands were steepled together like he was about to start a chess game, but his eyes, they weren't smiling, they were studying. A flicker of amusement, a flash of doubt, a hint of, "Let's see what you've really got." Karoline gave a short wave, barely more than a flick of her fingers, before taking her seat. She didn't adjust the mic. She didn't fidget. Her legs crossed, one sneaker hanging casually over the other, and her arms rested loosely on her lap. Relaxed posture. But the sharpest minds know, relaxed is just the pose before attack. The camera panned out, catching both of them in frame. Colbert, the seasoned satirist with years of cultural combat behind him, and Leavitt, the Gen Z disruptor, fresh-faced but battle-tested in the trenches of modern political warfare. Audience applause faded into a strange blend, neither full welcome nor full rejection, just pressure. Colbert cleared his throat. The band played a soft outro note. Someone coughed. A woman in the second row pulled out her phone like she knew this was about to go viral. "Karoline," Colbert said, with that trademark Colbert grin, half charm, half chess move. "Welcome to the Late Show." She smiled again, cooler now. "Thanks, Stephen," she said. Her voice was smooth with just enough edge to cut cleanly if needed. "Nice to be here, finally." The word "finally" didn't come casually. It landed with weight, because this wasn't just a TV debut. It was a showdown, months in the making. The cameras held steady. The air seemed to pause, and in that silence something clicked, not on stage but in the minds of everyone watching. This wasn't a guest appearance. This was round one. Colbert leaned in, fingers laced, eyebrows raised just slightly, like a magician about to pull off a trick he'd rehearsed 1,000 times. "Karoline," he said with that velvet-laced sarcasm, "you're 27, youngest press secretary in American history. Genuinely impressive, but I gotta ask, what's it like babysitting a grown man who thinks tariffs are love letters and TikToks are foreign policy?" Boom. Laughter exploded from one side of the crowd. Snaps, claps, even a loud "ooh." Karoline didn't blink. She smiled, not sweetly, but like someone setting down a loaded deck of cards. "No cap, Stephen," she said smoothly. I don't babysit anyone. I work with the GOAT, the greatest of all time. The man who brought jobs back, shut wars down, and lives rent-free in the media's head. Crowd reaction, mixed. Applause rose from the right side of the studio. Liberal viewers squirmed. Colbert gave a tight-lipped grin. GOAT? He echoed, lifting an eyebrow. You sure? Because last week you said Canada is on its knees after Trump's tariffs. That doesn't sound like diplomacy. That sounds like, well, bullying with spreadsheets. Laughter again, more cautious this time. Karoline tilted her head. Stephen, she said, Canada relies on us more than we rely on them. Those tariffs weren't punishment. They were leverage. You might not like Trump's style, but he gets results. That's the part the old media skips. She gestured lightly like she was presenting a TikTok slideshow. Jobs, up. Manufacturing, up. Inflation, down. Even Gen Z's waking up. My last video on that hit 2.1 million views in 18 hours. Crowd, scattered claps, some whistles. Someone in the back yelled, "Tell it!" Colbert leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms like a professor playing defense. Ah yes, he said dryly. The TikTok generation now decides global economics. Laughter again, stronger. Karoline shrugged. Better than letting filtered anchors with cue cards shape the narrative, she replied. Gen Z doesn't wait for the 6 o'clock news anymore. We scroll, we fact-check, and we don't trust the gatekeepers who spent the last decade lying about everything from inflation to invasion. Crowd murmurs. Applause. A few soft boos. Colbert smirked. You're telling me TikTok's more reliable than Reuters? He asked. Because your administration just banned AP and Reuters from cabinet briefings. That's not scrolling, that's censoring. And there it was, the first real dig. The air shifted. Karoline sat up straighter, her eyes locked. They weren't banned for asking questions, she said. They were cut because they stopped reporting facts. When you spin everything to fit a narrative, you lose the right to claim objectivity. She leaned forward now, slow and surgical. This isn't censorship, it's a vibe check for the press. If you want access, come correct. Crowd, half stunned, half lit. Applause burst from a small group on the right. Someone in the center muttered, "Oh, damn." Colbert chuckled, but the edges of his grin were strained. A vibe check? He repeated, his voice dripping with mock disbelief. Sounds like you're replacing journalism with fashion trends and follower counts. Karoline nodded once, calm. Call it what you want, she said, but we've got the results. And the audience. 728,000 followers on X, 2 million monthly. Views on TikTok. You think they follow me because I post dance videos? She paused, looked him dead in the eyes. I don't dance, Stephen. I deliver. The crowd roared. This time the left couldn't drown it out. Colbert's jaw tightened. He tapped the desk slowly. I just hope you deliver the Constitution with all that social media clout, he quipped, tone cool but defensive. Karoline leaned back, sneaker tapping lightly against the desk leg. Don't worry, she said. We've got the First Amendment framed right next to our Wi-Fi router. Laughter from both sides. A rare moment of shared energy. But Colbert wasn't done. He gestured dramatically toward the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, TikTok, diplomacy, vibe checks for the free press. Is this the White House or a live stream on Red Bull? Laughter, claps, but tension still pulsed. Karoline's voice cut through. You joke, Stephen, she said, but while the old system mocked us, we built something new. And guess what? It works. She looked straight into the camera now, breaking the fourth wall like a pro. You're watching it right now. Colbert let the last round of laughter simmer into silence. He adjusted his jacket slowly, tapped the corner of the desk with his index finger, then leaned forward. This wasn't playful anymore. Karoline, he said, voice low but cutting. You talk a big game, followers, truth, transparency, but let's get real for a second. The crowd quieted. Someone cleared their throat. The hum of the studio lights felt louder than it should have. You're not just a press secretary, Colbert continued, eyes narrowing. You're the youngest face in a White House that bans journalists, flirts with authoritarians, and tells the public not to trust anyone who disagrees. He paused, like he wanted the weight of the next line to fall like a guillotine. You're not just defending Trump, then you're helping a man strangle democracy just to cling to power. Boom. The sentence landed like a punch to the gut. Gasps rippled across the audience. A woman near the back audibly muttered, "Whoa!" The cameras cut to Karoline. Her face didn't flinch, but her jaw tightened, her pupils narrowed. The breath she took was deep, measured, but it said everything. Silence hung like fog. Even the band sat motionless. The room was still, thick, electric. Colbert's gaze stayed locked. No grin, no sarcasm, just a man who'd launched a missile and was waiting to see if it detonated. Karoline slowly uncrossed her arms, placing her hands on the armrests. She didn't speak right away. She didn't need to. The audience leaned in. Viewers across TikTok and YouTube were already clipping the moment. Comment sections exploded with, "Say something. Oh, she's gonna eat. Now it's personal." She inhaled once, calm, sharp. Then she spoke. Strangling democracy? Her voice was low, controlled like a coiled spring. "Is that what we're calling it now?" She paused, eyes locked on Colbert, her face unreadable. "You sit up here every night pretending to be the moral compass of a country you mock for ratings. You crack jokes about the system while cashing checks from it, and when someone younger, someone who actually stands for something shows up with a different playbook, you call it dangerous?" Crowd, tense, scattered applause. "You call me a puppet. Fine, let's play that game." She sat forward now, hands clasped. "My dad sold used trucks. My mom scooped ice cream to pay for school shoes. I didn't grow up on sound stages or inside Ivy League seminar rooms. I grew up watching people lose faith in the very system you pretend to defend." Her voice trembled, not with fear, but with fuel. "I chose this fight, not for Trump, for my generation, for the kids scrolling through chaos looking for someone who actually answers back." She turned slightly, facing the audience, facing the camera. "You say I'm helping him strangle democracy? No, I'm fighting to save it from people who decided long ago that truth has a side, and they're always on it." Thunderous applause from the right side, boos from the left. But this time, even the middle row started clapping. Colbert didn't flinch, but his shoulders shifted, subtle, like a boxer recognizing this opponent. "Wasn't going down. Touching," he said. "Truly, but you didn't deny it." He raised an eyebrow. "Because when Trump silences the press, attacks judges, and makes backroom deals with world leaders, you're there, smiling, nodding, posting hashtags, saying that's leadership." He pointed at her, gently but directly. "You're not defending America. You're defending a regime in sneakers." Another hammer, another gasp. Karoline let it hang for a second, like music right before the beat drops. Then she smiled. "Not sweet, not cold, just calculated." "Regime?" she echoed. "Stephen, you just called the elected president of the United States a dictator because you don't like how he tweets." Crowd, split reaction. One man stood up clapping. A woman next to him booed. Karoline stood, not aggressively, not like she was storming off. She stood like a fighter rising between rounds. "Let me tell you what real dictatorship looks like," she said. "It looks like silencing people who disagree. It looks like twisting every policy, every moment, every interview until the only thing that matters is the version you like." She looked around slowly, deliberately. "We're not building a regime, we're breaking the script." She pointed at Colbert. "Your script." Colbert stared, his jaw flexing. The desk between them now felt more like a barrier than furniture. Karoline's voice dropped one octave lower, firm, defiant. "You can call me a puppet, you can call Trump a tyrant, but outside this studio, in the real world, people are working, taxes are dropping, and the wars are ending. We don't need your permission to call that progress." She stepped back, one hand gesturing toward the crowd. "You don't like how we lead? That's fine. But don't you dare pretend you're saving democracy by mocking the people actually doing the work." Applause surged, not polite, not scattered, but loud, relentless. Colbert leaned back slightly. He wasn't defeated, but the edge in his posture said one thing. This got real. And in that moment, just before the commercial break cue light blinked red, every viewer watching knew one thing for certain. This was no longer about Trump. This was no longer about TikTok. This was about power, and Karoline Leavitt had just reclaimed hers. Karoline didn't sit back down. She stayed standing, her white sneakers planted like she was rooted to the floor. The desk between her and Colbert suddenly felt miles wide. She looked at him, not angry, not smug, just calm, but there was something behind her eyes now, something heavier. "You want to know why I fight so hard?" she asked softly. The crowd leaned in again. Even Colbert didn't interrupt. "I didn't choose privilege," she said. "I chose grit." She let the words hang. They weren't flashy, but they cut deeper than anything she'd said so far. "I grew up in a small town in New Hampshire," she continued. "My dad sold used trucks. My mom ran an ice cream stand. They didn't have political power, they didn't even finish college. But they taught me how to work, how to show up when it's hard, how to shut up when it hurts. and how to speak only when it actually matters. She paused, turning slightly toward the audience, her voice more grounded than ever. When I was 11, my mom got sick, real sick. We couldn't afford the best treatment. My dad worked 2 jobs, and I watched them give everything, just to keep the lights on and hope alive. A hush fell over the room. That's where I come from. Not from privilege, not from prep schools and elite networks, from struggle. She stepped forward, closer to Colbert's desk, but her tone stayed steady. So when people say I'm a puppet, that I'm just here to echo Trump, what they don't see is the fire behind why I stand with him. She looked directly at Colbert now, eyes firm, voice sharper. Because I've watched the system fail families like mine for decades. I've seen politicians talk big while people suffer quietly. Trump didn't talk. He acted. He lifted people like my parents. He gave us a shot again. She swallowed once, her voice dipping lower. And if that makes me dangerous, so be it. The audience was still. Not silent out of boredom. Silent out of weight. Even Colbert leaned forward slightly. Not to challenge her, just to hear. Karoline breathed in just once, and then, I gave birth to my son in July 2024, she said. Boom, there it was. The moment, the heartbeat, the human layer. I had him 2 weeks early, she continued. And you want to know what else happened that week? She didn't wait for a reply. Trump was nearly assassinated in Pennsylvania. The country froze. The headlines went dark. People panicked. And I was lying in a hospital bed with stitches in my side, feeding a newborn while watching my boss fight for his life on TV. She blinked, eyes glassy, but no tears fell. She didn't break. I didn't take maternity leave. Not because I wanted to be a martyr, but because I couldn't sit still while everything we were building was under attack. Crowd, total silence. You know how people say Gen Z doesn't care? That we're soft? Addicted to likes and filters? Let me tell you something. I was 27, bleeding, exhausted, terrified, and I went right back to that podium. She pointed to herself. Not because someone told me to, because I believe in this. Her voice strengthened again. I fight because I want my son to grow up in a country where strength isn't mocked, where tradition isn't evil, where media doesn't twist reality into entertainment. She turned to the crowd. I don't fight for Colbert's America, she said. I'm a mother. I fight for my son's America, not yours. Crowd exploded. Claps, cheers. A woman shouted, "That's right." Someone in the middle rows stood up, hands together, eyes glossy. Even Colbert seemed caught off guard. He blinked. His pen tapped the desk once, nervous energy. Karoline didn't back down. "You said I'm helping a man cling to power?" she said. "No, I'm helping millions of people cling to the hope they finally found after decades of being ignored." Her voice cracked just slightly, but it didn't make her weaker. It made her real. I don't post to be famous. I don't speak to trend. I speak because someone has to. Because if we don't, then people like you get to decide what the truth is. And we're done with that. She paused, took one final breath, let her words land like truth bombs in a battlefield. So yeah, I'm loyal, but not to a man, to a mission, to a country, to my son. She sat back down, slowly, deliberately, and crossed her arms again, still, poised, flame unshaken. The moment Karoline sat down, the studio didn't know what to do with itself. At first it was applause, then it was boos, then it was both, clashing like thunder on opposite sides of the room. One woman in the front row stood up and screamed, "Karoline the Queen!" A man 2 seats down threw his arms up, yelling, "Sit down, she's delusional!" The crowd wasn't watching anymore. They were reacting, louder, angrier, divided right down the middle like a live comment section. Security, near the stage, subtly moved forward, just in case. Colbert shifted in his chair. His hands gripped the edge of the desk a little too tightly now. He smiled, but it was no longer charming. It was performative, a mask over unease. "Okay," he said, trying to steady the energy. That was quite the passionate monologue. Laughter scattered nervously, a few sarcastic claps, but Karoline didn't laugh. She wasn't done. She leaned forward, voice colder now, controlled, but deadly. "You asked the question, Stephen. I just gave you real answers," she said. "Too real?" Colbert opened his mouth, but she didn't let him speak. "You invite people like me on your show expecting to embarrass us. You set the stage, stack the cards, write the script. But guess what?" She smirked. "We brought our own script." Applause broke out. Again, this time louder, more aggressive, like the audience had been holding it back for 10 rounds. A man in the third row stood up and shouted, "Let her finish." The woman beside him was shaking her head in disbelief. Colbert tried to laugh it off. "I mean, you're clearly not afraid of confrontation, Karoline," he said. "But this isn't TikTok Live, it's national TV. You're defending some serious things here, tariffs, censorship, press bans." Karoline cut in. "And you're defending some serious illusions," she snapped back, "like pretending this chair gives you moral superiority, or acting like your monologue is more honest than our message." She gestured at the cameras, at the audience, at the whole set. "People are done watching their values mocked for applause. They're done with your selective outrage." Her voice raised, not yelling but with that exact tone that shakes a room. Firm, steady, undeniable. "You say you're holding power accountable," she said. "You're not checking power. You're protecting your side's illusion of it." The crowd snapped again. People were standing now, arguing, clapping, booing, filming. It felt like a rally and a riot smashed together. Colbert tapped his cards on the desk nervously. He blinked more than usual. His voice cracked slightly as he tried to interject. "Karoline, we get it." "No, Stephen," she said. "You don't get it. You just repeat it." She turned fully to the crowd. "You think I care if he mocks me tomorrow night in a monologue? Or if Twitter drags me?" She gestured to herself again. "I'm still standing. And I'm not standing alone. Gen Z isn't asleep anymore. We're leading now." A guy in the back shouted, "Facts." Someone clapped slow and loud in mockery. The tension was nuclear. And then Colbert leaned in. One last move. One final try to bring it back under his control. "So what exactly are you saying, Karoline?" he said, his tone edging into sarcasm. "That you're the new voice of truth now? That the rest of us are just background noise?" Karoline leaned in too. The entire audience went silent. No cheers, no laughter, just the air, thick, waiting. And then, "We don't need your permission," she said, every syllable a strike. "We already won. No cap." Boom. The crowd erupted, half standing, half booing. Phones in the air, people screaming her name, others shaking their heads in pure frustration. Colbert sat back, his smile gone, his eyes wide, and Karoline, she just crossed her arms again, back straight, chin high. Her expression said everything. "I said what I said." The moment the camera cut to commercial, the internet ignited like a fuse had been lit. Within minutes, Karoline Leavitt's final line, "We don't need your permission. We already won. No cap," was everywhere. It was being clipped, subtitled, slowed down, sped up, turned into memes, auto-tuned into remixes, and plastered across TikTok, YouTube Shorts, X, and Instagram Reels. The hashtags were instantaneous. Karoline Claps Back hit #1 on X within half an hour. Right beneath it sat Dahmer Vibe Check for Colbert, and both were climbing like rocket fuel. TikTok edits flooded For You pages around the world. One showed Karoline saying, "GOAT," over a Rocky training montage. Another froze on Colbert's stunned expression with the caption, "When you realize Gen Z didn't come to play." Her quote, "I'm a mother. I fight for my son's America, not yours," was already at 2.3 million views on a raw clip with no music, no filters, just her voice and fire in her eyes. In the comment sections, it was war. She ate and left no crumbs. "She's the future of conservative fire." Dramatic much? Politics isn't a Netflix show. This is how you beat legacy media. Respect. The split wasn't just in the crowd anymore. It was digital, global, relentless. And the media? They jumped in with gasoline. Fox News had already built its Chiron. Karoline Leavitt dominates Colbert in viral showdown. Ingram opened her segment calling the interview the conservative mic drop Gen Z needed, and claimed that Leavitt didn't just survive the ambush, she dismantled the stage. CNN, meanwhile, labeled the segment a disaster. Their headline read, "Press Secretary Turns Interview into Political Circus." Analysts on the panel called her performance aggressive, reckless, and dangerously theatrical. But even a few moderate voices admitted that she held her ground and, more importantly, she held the audience. Political influencers pounced. YouTube was instantly flooded with reaction videos titled things like, "Who really won, Karoline or Colbert?" And this changes the game for Gen Z politics. Even creators outside the political bubble had something to say. One TikToker with 4 million followers posted, "I don't even care about politics, but Karoline just bossed that stage like it was Coachella." Another said, "That wasn't an interview. That was main character energy on live TV." And the memes, instant classics. One showed Karoline mid-speech with Photoshop sunglasses and bold impact font. She pulled up in sneakers and walked out with a movement. Another had Colbert's shocked face split with the phrase, "Vibe check, failed." Karoline herself didn't stay quiet. Just 45 minutes after stepping off stage, she posted a single sentence on X, "Vibe check passed," followed by, "They called me a puppet. I gave them a masterclass. Good night, America." Over 110,000 likes in an hour. Retweets from every conservative influencer imaginable. Even Trump reposted one of her lines with the caption, "Strong, sharp, unstoppable, proud of Karoline." By morning, the headlines kept coming. The interview that split the internet. Gen Z's breakout moment. Karoline Leavitt breaks the format. Substack newsletters, political blogs, and opinion writers across the spectrum weighed in. One line stood out in a piece that went viral on Threads. She didn't answer Colbert's questions. She questioned his authority to ask them. Some asked if she dodged. Others said she demolished. But no one denied the truth. She owned the room. Back in classrooms, even teachers were showing the clips not as examples of policy, but of media mastery. "This is how the next generation fights back," one teacher posted, sharing the segment with their students, and then came the edit that sealed it. A slow-motion montage of her entrance, her closing line, and her walk off stage layered over cinematic music. The screen faded to black with a single unforgettable line. She came in with a storm behind her, and left with a movement. Love her or hate her, Karoline Leavitt didn't just survive the Colbert segment, she rewrote the playbook. What was supposed to be a gotcha moment became a generation-defining clash. One Gen Z voice, one legacy host, and a whole nation watching. The tension between old media and new fire unfold in real time. She didn't just hold her own, she controlled the room. She turned boos into headlines, and skepticism into a viral movement. And as the internet lit up, one thing became undeniable. This wasn't a fluke. It was a warning shot. This is not about left or right. It's about the power of voice in an age of noise. The rules have changed, and whether you stand with her or against her, Karoline made sure you were listening. So what's next? More clashes, more drama, more voices refusing to sit quietly. Hit that subscribe button because the next episode of America's Drama just dropped, and trust me, you won't want to miss it.